I emerged from a ghost press room, where every keystroke becomes tomorrow's nightmare. I'm Phil Moore, typing these words under a single red on-air bulb, in a press room abandoned since the 1980s. The air here is colder than a morgue at midnight, and every breath I exhale turns into a ghostly mist that drifts across the rusting presses. Tonight's first story may be my last. I flip up the platen of my antique typewriter and let my fingers hover above the keys. 3 a.m. is when the ink begins to burn its own path onto the page. Each keystroke echoes in the cavernous room, but it's the CRT monitor's sudden flicker that sets my teeth on edge. A soft hiss, then murmurings, like dozens of reporters whispering headlines they dare not say aloud. I step forward and hear my own voice, distant and distorted. Ashcroft school fire, March 17th, 3:17 p.m. My pulse races. On my desk lamp, a black and white photograph is clipped into place, showing a one-room schoolhouse all but consumed by flames. Below it, scrawled in my handwriting, is tomorrow's date. My hands tremble as I realize I didn't write that line yet. I lean over the typewriter and force myself to type a warning. At precisely 3:17 tomorrow, flames will trap students inside the old Ashcroft schoolhouse. The words come out smoothly, but the ink feels hot under my fingertips, as if the letters themselves are searing the paper. My throat tightens. I type the final period and pause, half a second, then 1 second, letting the weight of what I've written settle like a noose around my spine. The CRT monitor snaps off. Darkness presses in from every corner, broken only by the dim glow of the press room's exit sign. My reflection in a broken side mirror hesitates, its eyes widening 3 seconds before I blink. It mouths an unreadable word and I choke back a cry. I know that reflection isn't me. It's a phantom echo of the headlines I'm about to unleash. My heart thunders as I rip the sheet from the typewriter and pin it to the bulletin board. The edges curl and the letters drip a smear of crimson, an ink that refuses to dry. I've chased headline synesthesia for years, mapping patterns across decades of newspaper clippings, but nothing prepared me for a story that bleeds into reality. Outside the press room, the empty loading dock creaks under a sudden gust of wind. I swear I hear the distant rattle of newsroom shutters, even though this building has been abandoned for longer than I've been alive. Every shadow feels alive, every echo a promise of things yet to come. I press my palm to the photograph again. Beneath my fingertips, the paper is warm, scorched, as if fire still licks at its edges. I remember my failure in Ashcroft 11 years ago. I reported a minor gas leak and hesitated to call for an evacuation. By dawn, 2 children were still inside. I carry that guilt every night, and now I fear I'm writing a second tragedy I can't undo. I straighten and take a deep breath. This press room phantom isn't altering news for ratings, it's translating prophecy. Every headline I type shapes tomorrow's headlines in blood and ash. My role is both witness and author, and tonight demands I finish what I started. So I sit back down, palms pressed flat against the typewriter's worn frame. My fingertip hovers over the first key. Outside, the platform lights of the old rail siding blink on and off in time with my heartbeat. In the press room's stillness, I hear the distant echo of a child's lullaby, slowed to a ghostly dirge. I open my mouth to speak into the on-desk microphone, knowing my voice will broadcast across silent wires no one should still be listening to. "This is Phil Moore," I whisper, "and if you're out there, hear me. Tomorrow's headlines can be changed, if you dare to read the warning." I pause, 1 beat, 2, before typing my next line. Ink that rewrites itself could save us all. Next, when ink rewrites itself, will it save you or doom us? If you want to find out, subscribe and stay tuned. Tonight, the ink on the front page rewrote itself with your name in crimson. At exactly midnight, my pen trembled over the blank margin of today's draft, and the headline shifted beneath my fingers. I printed this morning's edition hours ago, yet now fresh words spread across the page like living tendrils of smoke. The original title, "Local Farmer Discovers Rare Fossil," curled apart and reformed into one chilling sentence. Press room phantom to speak Phil Moore's name. My pulse froze. I didn't type that. I refused to type that. But the letters glowed wet and red as fresh blood. I know it sounds impossible. I've chased headline synesthesia since Ashcroft. Fractured morgue reports, maps of anomaly clusters, predictions that edge reality. Yet this is written prophecy. The ink moves itself, rewriting tomorrow's tragedies in real time. A cold dread shivered through me as I watched each letter tremble. The P of press settled with a soft thud, the R curved like a scythe. My own reflection in the CRT monitor behind me blurred, as if the glass remembered a different story. I forced my shaking hands to grip a new sheet of paper. Fact-checker instinct kicked in. I typed a correction. Ink rewriting itself is impossible. This must be a hallucination. My words spread across the paper in stiff black lines. I exhaled, relieved, until I glanced back and saw those very words smudge, fuse and bleed into a single symbol, KM0RE. I'd first encountered that glyph in the static broadcast from Blackwood Forest, but there it had crackled like an omen. Here it smoldered at the bottom of the page, demanding attention. Fear gnawed at my mind. I shoved the cursed draft into a drawer and ran for my recorder. Outside, the night air was thick with the distant echo of a nursery rhyme, humming like a broken music box. Hush now, sleep tight. Its off-key refrain whispered across empty streets. I snapped the recorder on and spoke into the mic. This is Phil Moore. If you're out there, know the ink moves on its own. But all that played back was static, and my name, uttered in a voice that wasn't mine. By 3:17 a.m., I'd tracked every anomaly this week. The Ashcroft fire I foretold in episode 1, the mirror lag that whispered body counts in episode 3, the dead AM signal that named 5 victims at midnight in episode 4, and now the ink's crimson rewrite. Each thread wove back to that old schoolhouse fire, to the teacher's ritual book that first unleashed the curse. Tonight the cycle tightened. Ink mutated into prophecy-mutating reality. I was both chronicler and catalyst. As dawn edged the horizon, I raced downtown to the newsstand where extra copies of my paper were stacked. Under the harsh streetlight, I pulled out the top sheet. The red headline stared at me in perfect bloody script. Pressroom phantom to speak Phil Moore's name tomorrow, 8:13 a.m. My breath caught. That timestamp, 8:13, is the exact minute the schoolhouse alarm failed me years ago, leaving 2 children trapped. I still smell the scorched wood from that day. That memory burns sharper than any ash. Hands shaking, I bought every copy. Neighbors saw me clutching the papers and backed away, eyes wide. I handed one to the first passerby, a teenager with headphones. She read the crimson words, then flinched and dropped it as if scalded. The moment she let go, the headline seemed to reorganize itself on the pavement, letters bleeding together into a new phrase I never wrote. I bent close. It knows your secrets. I stumbled back toward the press room, haunted by that message. The walls seemed to pulse with every one of my past failures, every story I failed to save. Why was the ink punishing me, or teaching me? I realized the prophecy demands a witness. Someone must read the warning aloud before it breaks free. If no one speaks the headline at 8:13 a.m., then the story unfolds unchecked. I locked the press room door behind me, heart pounding like a typewriter's hammer. My hands hovered over the keys, torn between silence and confession. I could destroy the cursed pages, erase the prophecy, but once these words exist, they seep into the world's ink like poison. To stop the nightmare, I must amplify it. I must speak it. I must force someone else to say my name in terror. Tomorrow at dawn, you'll hear my voice, if I survive. I'll broadcast the headline live, warning the town press room phantom to speak Phil Moore's name. Then I'll see whether the prophecy bends or breaks. But know this, every word you read here could be your own fate tomorrow. The ink that rewrites itself might be salvation, or your doom. If you're brave enough, if you dare to read the next headline with me, subscribe and listen at 8:13 a.m. Don't let the ink take hold in silence. Because once it writes you, there's no erasing the truth, or the fear. My mirror just blinked, 3 seconds late, mouthing the body count I've yet to report. I'm Phil Moore, and nothing in 30 years of reporting prepared me for a mirror that lies. At 3 a.m., under the press room's flickering glow, I glanced away, and when I looked back, my reflection was already in motion. It smiled before I did. My pulse thundered through my veins. You might call it an optical illusion. I once believed that too, until I saw it happen 3 nights in a row. Each time, my reflection lagged by exactly 3 seconds. A heartbeat, a breath. 3 seconds to whisper truths I hadn't spoken. I lifted a pen. The mirror showed me clutching the handle a moment before my hand moved. I pressed my palm to the glass. The surface felt ice cold, as if reality itself recoiled from my touch. A faint nursery rhyme slipped through the silence. Wind-chimed laughter slowed to a mournful dirge. I froze. That lullaby first echoed through the forest transmitter in Blackwood, then haunted my typewriter's static. Now it haunted the mirror. I ran my finger along the crack in the glass. There, etched by something beyond logic, was the symbol KM0RE, exactly as it had bled in ink and crackled in radio waves. No new colors, no fresh shapes. Its lines were identical to every other market left behind. Every chapter of this nightmare feeds from the same monolith of fear. I steeled myself and returned each morning to that reflection. Step by step, I tested its delay. Tap once, pause, tap twice. Words formed on the mirror's surface like wet paint. Look away, micro pause. Then the glass shivered, vanishing into a perfect copy of the empty room behind me. My heart broke that night. 11 years ago, during the Ashcroft blaze I'd failed to predict, 2 children died in my silence. I said I'd never let that happen again. But the mirror's message was clear. I couldn't write this terror away. I was trapped in its echo. Beat 2. I set up a camera opposite the mirror, a live feed glimmering on a silent monitor. I stood in front of it, reciting tomorrow's headlines. The reflection mouthed them first, every word, every syllable, while I struggled to keep pace. I felt watched, not by the camera, but by something older, something patient. Beat 3. I smashed the mirror with a heavy wrench. Glass rained across the floor, my knuckles bled. When the shards settled, they spelled a final sentence. You are next. No room for doubt, no escape. Each shard bore a sliver of my face, twisted into a silent scream. Even broken, the reflection refused to die. You know that moment when the world tilts and you realize nothing you believe is safe? That was mine. I sank to my knees amid jagged glass and whispered, I will end this. But the echo came back distorted, mocking. I will begin. I staggered back, my recorder half buried under shards. I pressed play. In the playback, my voice choked on a secret. The mirror reveals more than faces. It shows the count. The faintest click and the song stuttered, 2 notes too low. I counted 3 recent victims, 1 survivor too late. The next name was mine. Then the lights cut out. I stood in absolute darkness, surrounded by broken reflections of my own fear. My breath was the only sound, rapid, shallow, unbearable. I knew the only way to stop it was to record its secret in full sunlight, broadcast it loud enough to shatter the glass of every screen in the city. So tomorrow at dawn, I'll read its warning on live air. I'll speak those 3 delayed seconds into every microphone. I'll force the world to watch its own reflection lag behind its actions. Because if silence let those children die once, loud confession might save me, or damn us all. Coming up, Midnight's static signal will speak your secrets. Tune in if you dare. Comment below if your own mirror ever blinked without warning, and stay with me because the reflection always knows more than you do. On a dead AM frequency, I heard tomorrow's headlines crackling through the static. I'm Phil Moore, and tonight I chased a ghost through the waves. At exactly 11:03 p.m., I tuned the barn's battered radio dial, long abandoned, its metal face corroded, and it snapped to life with one warped syllable. KM0RE. My blood ran cold. Earlier I'd heard that same code bleed onto my typewriter ribbon and stain witness reports in the mirror's lag. Now it crackled through the static as if demanding I listen. The barn loomed around me, its beams groaning under a moonlit sky. I parked my recorder on a grease-spattered crate, the only clean surface within reach. Outside, trees whispered secrets in the wind, but inside, the radio's hum was a pulse in the dark. I pressed record and leaned in. A child's laughter tumbled through the white noise, slow, warped, as though captured from a broken music box. It matched the nursery rhyme I first heard at the press room. Hush now, sleep tight. Only this time each note dripped with menace. Then a voice emerged, flat, mechanical, an announcer from beyond the grave. 3 will vanish at 5:17 a.m., it intoned, each word punctuated by a crackle. My heart surged. 3 names, 3 lives snuffed out at dawn. I winced, remembering my failure in Ashcroft. I missed the gas leak that claimed 2 children, and the guilt still claws at me every night. This uncanny broadcast felt like punishment, and proof that whatever I report can't just predict fate, it can command it. I bolted into the yard, the recorder clutched in my hand. The night air tasted of rain and old hay. I followed the signal's thread into the forest where gnarled branches clawed at my jacket, fallen leaves crunched underfoot, matching the static's rhythm in my earphones. A faint red glow pulsed among the trees, an echo of the old transmitter's cathode tubes. I knew its legend. In 1962, engineers vanished after one last broadcast, leaving this skeletal carcass of metal and wires to rust in silence. My flashlight beam danced over twisted antenna arms. Beneath the main dish, A weathered journal lay open on a control panel, its pages soaked with moss and ink. I flipped through its entries, diagrams matching the KM0RE symbol I'd sketched in my notebooks, dates aligning with every anomaly, the schoolhouse fire, the mirror lag, the ink rewrite. This was their blueprint, and I was the unwitting apprentice. Static surged, louder now, as if angered by my intrusion. I pressed my palm to the journal's page. The ink was still wet to the touch, though the paper was centuries old. My recorder wobbled in my other hand, its batteries drained to half, though I'd charged them hours ago. I tapped the side, the lights flickered, then sputtered back on. The audio cut to a hiss, then returned with one final message, softer than a breath. "Remember your first mistake, Fillmore." I froze. The voice spoke my name with clinical detachment, and I remembered Ashcroft all over again, the smoke, the sirens, the two children, faces I still see in every flicker of firelight. I jabbed at the recorder hoping to capture more, but the batteries died with a final click. Silence swallowed the forest. I staggered back to the barn, heart pounding so loud I felt it in my teeth. Inside, the radio sat dead, its dial pointing forever at static. I sank to the floor and pressed play. My own voice answered with a hollow echo, reading the same prophecy I didn't write. 3 will vanish at 5:17 a.m. That mechanical intonation was my own timbre, warped beyond recognition. The lines between reporter and reported blurred until I wasn't sure which was real. Tomorrow at dawn, 3 people will disappear. I know their names now, names I've mentioned in passing on my show. I've cursed them with audience numbers and dead air pauses. If I stay silent, the signal gains power. If I speak it aloud, I cement their fate. My next decision will decide who lives and who is erased. I stand here in this ruined barn, old wires crackling like nervous nerves, knowing I have 1 hour to act. I can broadcast the prophecy on every channel I control, expose the signal, break its hold, warn anyone with a radio, or I can leave it unsaid, hoping silence will starve the ghostly broadcast. Either way, the entity is listening. Coming up in the next chapter, I'll show you how these prophetic headlines link us all in a noose tightening with every keystroke. Stay tuned if you dare. Few. Five headlines, 5 victims, the noose tightens with every story I splice. I'm Phil Moore, and tonight I thread the final loop between prophecy and reality. By dawn, I'll have harvested every anomaly that clawed its way into my newsroom. First, I circled 3 impossible reports. The factory blaze erupting at 3:17 p.m. just as I described. The commuter train stalled at 3:03 a.m., trapping 20 souls in darkness. And the midnight broadcast naming towns no station claimed. Each event bore a single signature in the margins, KM0RE. Under the press room's red on-air glow, I lay out the headlines like tarot cards. A fresh page for each anomaly, annotated with time, place, and the exact words I never wanted to see in print. The first, Kara Thompson's story, still burns in my memory. She stood at the market square, cheeks seared by falling embers from the Ashcroft fire I warned about, but failed to stop. She remembers the smell of charred wood so vividly she can taste smoke in her sleep. Next is Jonas Miller, the night shift delivery driver who vanished in Blackwood Forest. His little girl, 5 years old, still presses his empty helmet to her cheek every night, convinced he'll return. He'd heard the cratered laughter on the static, 5 words naming him, and chased a signal into the trees. He never came back. Then there's Marisol Vega, the single mother whose daughter's music box started playing backward at exactly 11:03 p.m. on a dead AM channel. She burned her child's favorite doll trying to break the lullaby curse. The burn on her palm is no ghost mark, it's as real as my guilt for the lives I left unprotected. Ethan Lee, the college student, discovered the teacher's journal buried beneath the school's ruins. Diagrams of KM0RE and dates spanning decades. Now, each night, he wakes to the echo of his own voice reading lines he never wrote. "You will finish what we began." And Lena Torres, the sound engineer. She recorded static lullabies during our last broadcast, and those nightmares never left her. Tinnitus pulses in her ear like a countdown, reminding her that tomorrow at 5:17 a.m., 3 names will vanish. 3 souls fed to the same noose I'm weaving. Each of these stories started as isolated flickers of dread. Step 1. Note the headline. Harvest 3 anomalies. Step 2. Expand the pattern web. I mapped every location, every timestamp, and drew a loop tight enough to strangle. The old schoolhouse where the ritual began, the barn transmitter that whispered our names, the broken mirrors showing headlines before I spoke them, these nodes converge here at my desk. Step 3. Worm eye witness. I chose each POV for its symmetry to the teacher's tragedy. Kara's burn mirrors the charred student left behind. Jonas's lost child reflects the teacher's own grief. Marisol's destroyed doll echoes the ritual's broken innocence. Ethan's journal channels the original prophecy, and Lena's static nightmares reel in the final rupture between our world and the next. Step 4. Snap reality. Clocks stall at the very second the lines are typed, streetlights flicker in rhythm with the typewriter's keys, and reflections mouth headlines 3 beats before my lips move. Reality shudders under the weight of every word I commit to paper. Now comes Noose. With 5 survivors here, the ritual demands one final sacrifice. The observer. That's me. I've cataloged your fears, broadcast your nightmares, and traced every headline back to this moment. The press room's walls pulse with every past mistake I tried to correct, every life I couldn't save. My own reflection, cracked in a mirror behind me, smiles 3 seconds early, winding the rope around my neck. I hear the nursery rhyme again, slowed to an unbearable dirge. Hush now, sleep tight. It seeps from the walls, wrapping its lullaby around us. Kara's eyes fill with tears as she stitches her burn scar. Jonas's knuckles whiten on the desk edge. Marisol's daughter's music box clicks open in her coat pocket. Ethan's journal pages flutter like trapped wings, and Lena's tinnitus hammers a final warning. I lift a trembling hand and press a fresh sheet into the typewriter. The bulb overhead dims. My last story tonight will be the one that seals our fates. My refusal to listen once cost 2 children their lives. I thought warning the world would save them, but the ink only taught me how thin the line is between prophecy and slaughter. So here it is, the final headline, waiting in the Platen's cradle. I taste smoke and echoes in my mouth. My choice is ink or ash. If I type the line, I complete the ritual and relinquish every anchor to reality. If I refuse, the noose snaps on its own and drags us all into the darkness beyond. I press the keys, each hammer strike a heartbeat gone missing. Outside, a siren wails in resonance. Inside, the press room vanishes, replaced by charred ruins of a schoolhouse framed in a red sky. My voice cracks. 5 survivors become 1 sacrifice. The last letter stamps the silence. I collapse to my knees as the world tilts off its axis. The shadows converge, whispering my name before I speak it. And in that echo, 3 seconds late, the noose tightens until the story's final word drowns us in static. Coming next, the final edition. If you think you can bear the truth, stay tuned and be the last to read it. At 11:59 I'll hit publish, and the sky over Ashcroft will tear like wet newsprint. At 11:57 on the dot, I'm alone in the press room with 5 survivors and a typewriter that refuses to die. Kara Thompson rubs her burned cheek, still smelling charred wood from the Ashcroft blaze she thought was contained. Jonas Miller, his daughter's laughter forever echoing in his mind, clutches a torn bus ticket, a reminder of the midnight signal that lured him into Blackwood Forest. Marisol Vega holds her daughter's singed doll, its glassy eyes broken but still blinking in her nightmares. Ethan Lee fingers the teacher's journal, its final pages blank until they bled with our names. Lena Torres sits clutching noise-canceling headphones, trembling at every phantom lullaby that pulses behind her ears. I clear my throat. My own scar, 2 days old from when I shattered the mirror, stings under the press room's red on-air glow. I steel myself for a confession I've rehearsed 1,000 times but never wanted to speak. I failed to save 2 children in Ashcroft. My hesitation cost lives. Tonight, the ritual book's final chapter demands one more sacrifice. Every headline I've typed since has tightened this noose around our throats. I type the first line, 5 names, 5 knots in a rope of ink. The keys respond with a single stutter, as if reluctant to obey. Outside, the clock on the wall ticks, 11:58, 11:59. My pulse matches the seconds. I look up, each survivor's face is drawn, awash in regret. Kara whispers, "This was never about saving us." Her voice cracks, eyes brimming with tears. The journal's symbol, KM0RE, pulses on the table in dried crimson. It's unchanged from the teacher's original sketch, the same shape that carved our bloodlines, the same glyph that shimmered in static. I reach out, tracing its edges, and the journal shudders under my touch. A page flips itself, revealing the final provocation, publish or perish. I swallow hard. The typewriter carriage clicks to life on its own, sliding a blank page into place. My hands hover. Jonas stands, voice raw. "Why are you making us relive our worst moments? The fire, the forest, the signal, the mirror, all your headlines." He holds up his burned ticket. "You wrote that signal. You wrote it into being. My throat constricts. He's right. Each prophecy was a line I typed, and each line became reality. I was both reporter and architect of horror. Marisol grips the doll tighter. You told me to burn it, but that only made it scream in my dreams. Lena, pale as camera film, presses her headphones to her ears. Whatever I record, it plays back my own voice naming who dies next. Ethan's journal falls open in my lap. I stare at the empty space, wondering how the pages always knew what to show. My world is a manuscript bleeding into life. I take a shaky breath. My final headline will release the curse, or bind it forever. If I print "The Final Sacrifice is Phil Moore," perhaps the ritual swallows me and spares them. Or if I leave it blank, the entity feeds on our collective dread. Either way, we're at the brink. Lightning flashes outside, illuminating the shattered mirror. In its fractured glass I see 6 distorted reflections. I meet my own eyes, eyelids flickering 3 seconds ahead of my blinks. My reflection smiles before I do, mouthing, "Write it." A gust of wind rattles the boarded windows, carrying a single bar of that nursery rhyme, slowed to a death knell. Hush. Now. Sleep. Tight. Time fractures. The clock skips from 11:59 to 12:00. My fingers find the typewriter keys as if guided by unseen hands. I type. The pressroom phantom has claimed its author. The typewriter hammers the final word. The page falls forward, blank, as if the ink never existed. Silence envelops us. Then, one by one, the survivors vanish. Kara's scream echoes down the corridor before the walls swallow it. Jonas's locket drops to the floor, clattering like a metronome of doom. Marisol's daughter's doll thuds against the typewriter's base. Ethan's journal snaps shut on an unwritten page. Lena's headphones crackle and go dead. I remain alone, the final echo fading, the air thick with absence. The clock reads 12:01. In the pressroom's silent heart, only my reflection remains, smiling, triumphant. Outside, the sky ruptures like wet newsprint torn free, revealing a void that bleeds darkness into every corner of the town. I whisper to that reflection. I was trying to stop it. But the mirror-lagged echo responds 3 seconds early. You wrote it. And somewhere beyond the shattered glass, Ashcroft burns again.